What's up, everybody? This week, Greg and I get together to talk about an album with a strange recording process and even deeper lyrics. New Adventures in HiFi by R.E.M. That and a whole lot more is to come, because maybe, even with annoying sounds, songs can be fantastic. Welcome to the show. All right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and spoil the chicken before we get started, I guess. This is our second attempt at recording this one because of technical errors. But anyway, it is good to be back. I'm joined by Greg. Greg, how are you, man?
Hey, what's up?
How has your week been?
Pretty topsy-turvy so far. It's just, holidays are coming, work's picking up in some respects.
I had a nice Saturday where I got me some donuts. It was a beautiful, beautiful day.
Yeah, I still haven't had my victory donuts yet. I got to do that really soon.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, we're not going to tell you. We can let you figure that out on your own. Do your own math. But before we get started, guys, if you want to check out what we're doing and what we're up to, go to becausemaybepodcast.com. Also, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. All of that's in the podcast description or on the video where you choose to watch it. And of course, if you were online, check out everywhere you would find good podcasts, bad podcasts, everywhere in between. And of course, check out YouTube as well. That's where we're all at. And again, all of that is on our website. So, REM.
Yeah.
What would you say, right? The REM were the godfathers of alternate music in the United States?
I think it's a fair argument. They that kind of like grassroots sort of following. They kind of pioneered that in a lot of ways. They toured their asses off for a long time. Put out a lot of music, and they like the Goo Goo Dolls was another band like them where they cranked out multiple records and just shopped themselves by touring everywhere, playing everywhere they could. So yeah, they were. I would say that they're like the innovators of sort of the indie, alt indie. I know the lines are kind of blurred over the decades as to what indie and alternative mean, but yeah, I mean, I think you could safely argue that for sure.
A friend of mine told me that what his theory is that alternative music is made by major labels, whereas indie music is independent labels.
Well, that makes sense because by namesake, independent. Yeah. I mean, that's the moniker from it. But I think that's fair.
Popular music and alternative music.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, REM. I mean, for those who don't know, R.E.M. were a great band in all years, but they started their life as a recording artist before I was born.
They've been around for a long time. They've been making music since the early 80s or somewhere around there.
I think their first song was either 82 or 83.
So yeah, right around when I was born. So yeah, I mean, they've been doing it for a while.
And they've released, I think the number was 13 as the final number that they released albums for. They split up, ranging from country rock, alternative rock as we call it, experimental.
Right.
Just they ran the gambit of everything. And today, what we're going to be talking about is one of their, I don't want to say experimental albums, but one of their albums that, it's experimental in how it was recorded. If that makes sense.
Yeah. They took a different approach on this one. Differently than like a traditional album would be cut.
Yeah, I mean,
it's usually it's one or the other. If you cut an album, it's either live or studio, and they kind of had a little bit of fun with it in that regard.
Yeah, and they didn't record it live with the full audience and the crowd noise and everything like that. This was like a sound check album for movement.
Yeah, but nonetheless cut live.
Yeah, quote unquote live. Now the reason, I knew this album being recorded somewhat live, right? And I wanted to cover this because of the unique circumstances around the recording. And I thought that would have been the most interesting thing about this album was how it was recorded.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's unique.
But digging into everything, and that is the least remarkable thing about this album.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but at least like from the engineering perspective, though, that is pretty interesting. At least,
yeah. So. I mean, that's what drew me towards it to begin with. We are talking about REM's New Adventures in Hi-Fi that was released in 1996. That was a top album in the UK, number 2 on the Billboard charts, and sold about 3 million copies worldwide. It was produced by REM and Scott Litt, who's a very, very good producer. Probably one of the best in the quote-unquote alternate scene. And of course, this is an album that's like alternate rock, folk rock, country rock, and just, again, experimental.
Alt rock, a little experimental rock. Yeah. I mean, they get a little spacey, they get a little jazzy, they get a little Dylan too as well. And yeah, I got some notes over here. There's like 2 or 3 different songs where he just straight up goes into New Test Leper and a couple of them. Yeah, he just like totally just goes into this Dylan ramble. It's great.
Yeah, and the great thing about Dylan ramble is great, but Michael Stipe is a good rambler as well.
Oh yeah, I mean he puts his own. It's not like it's not like Zeppelin, Greta Van Fleet. Like it's like Socrates and Plato. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like did his own, took what he had from that and did his own thing.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's what, like I said, that's one of Michael Stipe's hallmarks. There was a song that they did called "Country Feedback," and how REM writes and records songs was very, very interesting up until this point. Everything I found out from REM fans, a couple of my friends back home, very, very big REM fans. They kind of recorded it in a way where the band would write music and record music, and then like over like a couple of day period, they'd invite Michael Stipe in to listen to what they've recorded.
Yeah,
and he'd write the lyrics for what it was. And a song called "Country Feedback," he literally walked into the vocal studio with no paperwork, super depressed, gave one take, walked out halfway through the last chorus, and it became one of REM's most beautiful songs that they did. I mean, REM did have an unusual story going into this album. They stopped touring in 1990, which was like horrible, because as you said, REM basically shopped themselves around the country. We want to be this, we want to be that, and then all of a sudden, boom, we're not performing anymore.
They had a lot of roadblocks along the way. They had a lot of speed bumps and stuff like that too. So
they wasn't easy. They recorded 2 albums called Out of Time and Automatic for the People. Now, Out of Time is memorable for Shiny Happy People and Losing My Religion. And Automatic for the People is probably famous for Man on the Moon and Everybody Hurts. I mean, there's other songs on there too, but those are the 2 main from each album, right, that everybody knows.
Yeah, the big ones, yeah.
And they wrote both albums as a way of dealing with the fact that they were now 30 or in their 30s, and the end of a band called The Replacements. Now, I'm going to hold my hands up. I've never heard of The Replacements. Is that something that you've come across? Because I know I haven't come across it.
I've heard the name, but I'm not familiar with the group personally. I keep wanting to think it's that band that Matt Sharp, the old bassist from Weezer, started, but I know that's wrong. I think it's anyways, but yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that per se. So.
And apparently they were like one of the band's biggest influences, right? And, they released an album then in 1994 called Monster. Now, the thing about Monster was, during the time between Automatic for the People and Monster, 2 of Michael Stipe's best friends had died. Kurt Cobain had been murdered by Courtney Love. And
allegedly.
No, I'm seriously joking. Kurt Cobain took his own life, unfortunately. But I always like to say that
officially,
just to get a response to see how long I can keep the straight face for. But Kurt Cobain took his own life, and River Phoenix had what is alleged a drug-induced seizure outside of a nightclub.
Yeah, overdose.
That he overdosed and he never recovered.
Yeah.
These 2 guys were very, very, very close friends with Michael Stipe.
And they were also both very talented, very successful, and very young.
Yes.
They were both 27 years old, I believe.
Yeah, they're part of the 27 Club. So everybody thought that Monster, this rockier, louder, angrier album that REM did, was their mourning album. Michael Stipe got all of his mourning, all of his sadness out. And
that was just the anger.
Yeah. And there
maybe,
was a song, there was a song called "Let Me In" that was recorded on this album. That was recorded on a guitar that Kurt Cobain gave Michael Stipe.
Okay, wow, cool.
Now, my question to this is: can Michael Stipe play guitar left-handed, or do they have to restring it before they used it? But that's a different story for a different day.
Well, I'll throw this out there, just for just to put it out there. Kurt was known for using right-handed guitars and restringing them left-handed. Yeah, he did that all the time because he would get frustrated and smash his guitar, and then you'd have to build another one, put it together, or buy a pawn shop guitar. So most of the time, he would get a right-handed guitar, flip it over, restring it, readjust the bridge so it would play left-handed, and he'd play left-handed. So it could have been a right-handed guitar that he could actually be played. Who knows? But yeah, good question.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I knew like a lot of left-handed guitarists do that.
Yeah, but, well, I mean, out of convenience because there's right-handed guitars everywhere.
And the thing is, even though he disliked the fame, Kurt Cobain had enough money at that time to afford some of these, higher priced instruments, shall we say, whether he wanted the same sound or not. That's why
he had his own like signature series at that point.
Yeah, and that's why it didn't click into my head that he might have gone to a pawn shop, got a right. You know what I mean? Because he still lived frugally, even though he was a multi millionaire.
Yeah, he kind of in the early days, in the Bleach days, like in their grassroots days, kind of like REM when they were, touring Europe in a van with like a bunch of stinky dudes that they barely knew. That's what would happen. There's times where the guitars got lost or broken or smashed. So he became very, very resourceful. He would Frankenstein guitars together and stuff. Like, got to make it happen, So,
and guitars like that also sound better, I think.
More personality for sure, but so who knows? That it could have very well could have been a right-handed guitar. The way Kurt operated, he was very resourceful, to say the least.
Okay, that makes sense. But the reason that's important is they went on tour for the first time in 4 years to tour the Monster album, and a lot of fans were excited. The band themselves were excited because they didn't want to do the Beatles route of we're never going touring again. They just needed some time off because they had been touring constantly since the early 80s.
Yeah.
And this was 1990 at this point. So 8 years of constant touring, we're going to take some time off, but we're going to still make music. Well, this tour did not go any way that the band wanted it to go. Now, the shows themselves were some of their best work up to that point. But the circumstances surrounding a lot of these gigs, Michael Stipe, Mike Mills, the bass player, and Bill Berry, the drummer, all ended up in hospital during this tour.
Yeah, it was some serious stuff too. I mean, I remember the Bill Berry, the aneurysm thing on I think Tabitha Soren dropped it first. That takes you back at all, people. But I remember all those hurdles that they encountered in that tour.
Yeah, and actually, Bill Berry after this album quit the band because at that point he was like, I really couldn't care less if I pick up a set of drumsticks ever again. And so he became a hay farmer. I mean, that's a heck of a career trajectory right there, to be drummer for one of the biggest bands in the world to hay farmer.
It can burn you out, man. And I've got a friend who was in a very successful band, and I'll keep his name out of it. But anyways, they're a band that tours a lot all the time, and he just basically got tired of touring. And he's like, I still love the music and I love the band, but I just don't want to tour anymore, No. So he's still involved with the band and like writing and producing and stuff like that, but he doesn't tour with them anymore. But it can 10 years of that for him, it wore him out, man.
Yeah,
that's understandable. 200 dates a year will wear you out, and that's what big time bands do.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I'd love to have had that schedule, but I can't imagine that schedule. You know what I mean? It's it's really, really hard on you physically and mentally, and there are a lot of references to that in this album, which we'll get to here in a minute. But one thing about REM was they were like the kings of college radio, right? They were, they were considered the college radio kings and everything like that. Well, on this tour for Monster, they kind of toured with the band that would take their place as the kings of college radio. They were touring with Radiohead.
Yeah, and that's insane to me that Radiohead opened for them.
I mean, a lot of big bands,
like now, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of big bands who open for bigger bands. You know, it's really really weird. Like in '97, a lot of people, the metrics, and my own personal opinion, believe that Oasis were the biggest band in the world in '97. They were opening for U2.
Yeah.
I mean,
but U2 had been around so long.
Yeah.
The Joshua Tree and that tour, that huge stadium tour they did in the '90s.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been doing some pretty big stuff, but yeah, that's pretty crazy right there.
But Radiohead were recording at the time an album that recording a bunch of songs that became the Bends, right? And that's my favorite Radiohead album. I will say that right now. I love the Bends. I think it's fantastic. And what they were doing is they were jamming out the songs that would become the Bends.
Right.
And as they were jamming it out, they were recording it. Now, a lot of those recordings didn't make it to the Bends album, but some of the tracks did, if that makes sense. Like this guitar track might have made it, this drum track, you know. And the band picked up on that idea and were like, okay, we can do something like that. And then kind of on the tail end of this tour, they started, you know, writing lyrics, writing stuff. This has got a much more full sound because it's not just the four guys in the studio having to overlay stuff. This has got their touring pianist and their touring guitarist and their touring percussionist and everything in there. So they've kind of got extra ideas to bounce off. And it kind of, musically, this is probably the best album R.E.M. ever did.
And energy wise too, like there's something to be said about playing on a stage. Because I've got good a bit of studio experience, maybe not as much as stage.
Yeah.
But sometimes trying to capture that same sort of feel in the studio, it's really tough, and that's one of the jobs of the producer is to get that same energy. So the point being, if they're recording these cuts, even if they're like it's during sound check, typically where there's no one in the room, but the band and a few of the workers of the building, even so, being on that stage and knowing that place is going to be full of people, that'll give you a certain energy is hard to capture in a pure studio setting. Yeah. So that gave them kind of an edge sonically, really. And
they were lucky that they had Scott Litt working with them.
Yeah, Scott Litt did the Nirvana's In Utero album.
Yep.
And as an engineer, I'm a huge fan of his work, just as far as sonically. Also his console selection for all you gear nerds. He uses the old school analog Neve consoles, and they just sound so warm and just have so much personality and character. You can hear the two preamps are doing a great job. It just really, really, really good job, especially for something that was probably captured multi-track off of a desk and then reamped or worked later on. Yeah, Scott Litt definitely did a great job on this album.
Well, Scott Litt has worked for Liz Phair, New Order, Patti Smith, Counting Crows, Nirvana, Hole, and even people like Ziggy Marley. You know, it's an eclectic bunch, and he is. I mean, he is probably the best producer of the alternate music scene in the '90s, at least.
Yeah, no, definitely, and all those acts would give him credence to the title alternative because he kind of fits in every hole, if you will. Like he's a peg of every shape as far as a music producer goes. Very versatile. I
don't want to say Spectre, but I mean but you get what I'm saying. He's kind of like the equivalent of, you know, in the '60s, if you needed a good stuff done, you'd call Spectre. If in the '90s you need some alternative stuff, you'd call Litt.
Okay, so he's like Spectre, but he's less murderer-y.
Yeah. Phil Spector took out Cobain. No, I'm just...
Damn it.
But so as we go into this album, this was basically all written by R.E.M. The tracks were written by the band, and the lyrics were written by Michael Stipe. Basically, he does vocals and everything. There's a lot of weird instruments on here. A lot of... extra percussion, I noticed. Yeah. Like tambourines and stuff like that. Yeah, there's definitely some layering, and it's kind of makes it feel like more a studio album because of all the stuff that's going on. So like, because I went into this album totally ignorant. I didn't look up anything about this album. I did a totally dry listen, just
as it was, and I could not tell that it was recorded live in any form or function. To me, I figured it was an intentional filtering or presence approach to get, because of the words HiFi, because that was something they threw around in the vinyl age.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe that was what they were going for that vinyl warmth. But when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, you've already got all your studio musicians, or your touring musicians rather, because there's lots of organ, piano, stuff going on. Yeah, very, very good instrumentation.
And I mean, now that we know because it's our profession, right?
Sure.
And Michael Stipe had to work, in my opinion, right? Michael Stipe had to work twice as hard to get his normal results working this. Because Michael Stipe is a very, very, he's a great singer, right? I'm not gonna doubt it or whatever like that. But one of the advantages of being in the studio, as you know and I know, is you can double track or triple track, and you don't get that opportunity out there on the road, which meant that his voice sounded just a little flatter than normal. Not much, but enough for fans to notice, because he's Michael Stipe, and obviously professionals who do this thing for a living to notice it's just a little thinner than normal, just a little off. Not much, but just enough to notice. And I mean, I don't know. You can kind of tell it as well, because this does have several tracks that are recorded in the studio, and you can kind of match them up together, and you can tell.
Yeah, in that context, yes. But like going in dry when you just hit play, like I listened to it three times before the first attempt, and then now I've listened to it twice again since then. The first 3 times I did it without any information, like casual listening. And to me, I couldn't even tell, like even on my good headphones. But then once you brought that to my attention, and I started really critically looking for it. Yeah. I mean, it's plain as day. And
I think because of the fact that I noticed that it was live, because I'd put it in my Winamp. I still use Winamp, and shuffle the songs, and it played. And I think I noticed it in the song "Leave," which we'll get to here in a few minutes, because that's a weird one to begin with. But that's when I noticed that, hang on a minute, this sounds like it's live. Because when you buy an album, you don't dive into how it was recorded, where it was recorded, or something like that. And this kind of made me go, oh, okay. So now we're gonna get in track by track, like we always do, right? When we look over an album. Now, Michael Stipe is what I call a song teller. That's a term coined by British musician Fran Healy. Right. There are songwriters who just write a song, and there are song tellers who write a story to music in the guise of a song. Michael Stipe is a song teller, as far as I'm concerned.
Jim Morrison, I would think, is another one.
Yes.
Yeah. Freddie Mercury, maybe. I don't know. I mean,
on the songs he wrote, yes, but there's also a lot of songs that he didn't write for Queen that a song written.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, but I think those other 2 examples are good enough on their own. Yeah,
I mean, like, Bono is a songwriter, and over the last 20 years, not a good one. So what we're going to be talking about here is some notes that I've found what Michael Stipe and the band said this song was about, as well as some fan theories. Because once a song goes into the fandom, the fans own it in terms of the meaning. Unless the meaning is specifically spelled out, the fans own the meaning. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at this album as 14 tracks, which in my opinion is just a hair too long. It's got to be 12.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I think, that was kind of the quick hit era.
Yeah.
Like the 3-minute mark for radio singles, like in the 80s it was kind of 5. Now then they kind of got, it was like, hey, we can do more, if we can condense these songs into 3 minutes. So,
well, it's I mean, you hear stories about bands who put a really long intro to a song and then they click a stopwatch and it's like after 2 minutes, like, okay, we really need to cut this intro off, So we've talked about how this album was recorded, right? So naturally, we're going to start with the opening track, which was recorded in the studio.
Right?
This is a song called "How the West Was Won and Where It Got Us." Now,
this one's a cool one. It's kind of it doesn't really sound like REM when it starts off.
No,
but when his voice kicks in, then you're deep in REM country.
I mean, it's his traditional singing. You know, it's very, very soft and low all the way through. You know, and that's a real strength of Michael Stipe, because he doesn't have to project his voice too much all the time.
He has a very cutting voice. Yes. Is the tones of his voice. Like, I've noticed some people's voice just seems to cut through a crowd or through a mix better. Yeah, Maynard from Tool is one of those people as well. His voice cuts right through the middle. It's
like he has a natural charisma that he exerts through his voice.
Some people are just born with it, man. And I think any pro singer like that is going to have a certain amount of that. So yeah.
And I mean, you know, this is going to start off a lot of themes on this album. One of the themes is, you know, the touring, the traveling, and also a lot of frustration, right?
Yeah.
And this song, I think, has frustration, like a stroke of bad luck, wrong place, wrong time. I mean, two of his bandmates and himself ended up in hospital during the last tour.
Yeah.
It could mean that. Story is a sad one, told many times. The story of my life in trying times. I mean, again, you know, his close friends have died. His bandmates almost died.
It's like everything around him is like falling apart or like dying.
Yeah.
I mean, you could understand why anyone would become inward after that, you know?
And I think that one of the things that he did, I mean, you know, Michael Stipe's an artist. Let's not beat around the bush. He is an artist.
Oh, yeah.
Know? But he uses words instead of paintbrushes, and he expressed himself very, very clearly in what he meant by this song, you know? And he's just, you know, it's really, really good. It's really, really got that kind of piano, haunting, organ-y type sound.
Yeah, kind of Doorsy.
Yes.
I got a very Doors vibe from it, kind of the haunting kind of key. Maybe not directly, but like I don't know. You can tell that is what they were, that sort of stuff they were growing up to, that they were in that age group. So
I mean, a modern example for would be the Gorillaz.
Yeah. Oh, great band, and they have a very similar sound. As far as like the sounds they're going for, but also like literally their sound.
Yes.
Like that warmth and that presence that it's interesting because they'll have like jazz elements, but it'll be like club tuned, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like really, really deep bass, but then like a real soft kind of dry snare, you know, just so, yeah, you do see kind of, on the notes here, it says electronic quote unquote country. Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect, for that track. Absolutely.
And it's got, I don't know how to explain it. It's got like, it doesn't have a traditional beat, but it's one of those songs that you definitely, you know, you feel it. You're nodding your head to it. The bass line is, I mean, we're going to be talking about a lot of the bass lines in this album, but I mean, it keeps you going. It's like, you know, it's
groovy. Yeah. Mills is really, he's really good at like, okay, as a bass player, I can totally comment on this because it's part of the core of what I strive for as a bass player. And that is to be able to write when I write or play lines, the bass line should be telling its own story, like it doing its own thing. And Mike Mills does that absolutely perfect on this album. He plays extended range basses, he plays fingerstyle, he plays slap, he plays pick, he does a little bit of funky, does a little bit of groove, does a little bit of swing, does a little bit of he's really driving the car. I mean, he's really driving the car. Severely
underrated.
Oh yeah, I mean, he just sits in the mix so well, like you hardly even notice he's there. But if you listen to some other tracks, like What's the Frequency, Kenneth, where the guitars are just dun, 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 dun. They're not doing anything really special, but if you listen to he's like really filling it up, and you don't even it just sits in there so well. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily stand out so much, but it's making the whole song making everybody dance, which is the ultimate compliment to a bass player, by the way. And is dancing. If I start playing, people start dancing, I know I've done my job.
And if you dance into this one, then you've really done your job.
Yeah, you sold it.
Because I mean, it is a slower song, you know.
Yeah,
it does have that vibe. But we go from a kind of a slow sleeper, a little bit electronic-y, a little bit funky, a little bit country, to straight up glam rock, right? And
yeah.
It's called Wake Up Bomb.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite REM songs. I'll be completely honest, because I'm a sucker for a glam track.
To me, it's got some surfy elements too, though. In the beginning, the drums kind of like there's that little tom shuffle that kind of reminds me of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's elements of that. I think this is one of those ones where he pays a little homage to Bob Dylan as well. But I might be ignorant here because, like I said, I'm not the hugest REM fan, which I think is actually a unique place to be when reviewing an album.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have an opinion in either direction. But I'm beginning to feel like that Bob Dylan was just a big influence on him, period.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, I just my what I ascertained from listening to this album a few times. So.
Well, the thing is, it's almost autobiographical, right? Which is probably where the glam stuff comes in, because if you're talking about your teenage years and you were a teenager in the 70s, a lot of that stuff is going to come out as disco and glam and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, Peter Buck gets the sound of his guitars right and the feel of everything they wanted to do. And I mean, you're going to be hearing me say this phrase a lot during this, so I apologize. And I'm going to preface this with, I have bipolar, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat that or anything like that. This song is very, very bipolar-esque.
Okay.
It goes up and down to a high point to a low point, and now that's obviously not what bipolarism is, but it kind of goes both ways. It's like dealing with two sides of the personality that a lot of bipolar people have. Not necessarily two faces, but like you have an energetic side and a depressive side, which is very, very the opposite of energetic. I can't think for the life of me think of the word. Right, but
lethargic,
yes,
or just subdued.
Yes, and this kind of plays to both sides of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And this is not the first song that it's not the last song that does that. Excuse me. It is the first song that does it, but it's not going to be the last song that does it. I mean, they had to say that this song wasn't about anybody in particular, because it does come across as very, very anti-arrogance.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people thought it was about the band Oasis. Yeah, Atomic, Supersonic, what a joke, I'm dumb, see ya, don't want to be a lunch meat pond scum. And I think people got hung up on the Supersonic part because that was a song by Oasis.
Yeah, that was also a basketball team, so maybe they just didn't like that basketball team.
There you go. But I just think that it's definitely about hating arrogant people, but it's not laser focused into the people who people want it to be. Because I think everybody in the 90s wanted bands to be at each other's throats. And I think at the time, especially in the UK, while bands were at each other's throats, there were a lot more harmonious bands at the same time, like a lot of the dance scene in the UK and the indie scene in the UK kind of worked hand in hand, for lack of a better term. So we go back in the studio real quick, and this I don't know how I feel about this song. I like it and I don't like it because it's not mean-spirited. It's in fact the opposite of mean-spirited, but it's delivering in a mean-spirited kind of way, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I think if you do, someone who's not going to really look at this with an open mind is probably going to take it as anti-religion. Yeah. And some, but I think I guess you could say that, but I think it's a little bit more deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean, okay. This is a song called New Test Leper. Now, New Testament, leper leprosy was a big thing in the Bible.
Yeah, that was the thing you watched out for.
It was the COVID of the day.
You see that and you run. Well, the only thing about that though, it was visible. You could see it. That was the leg up on that. But anyway, yeah, basically.
Now, the first lyric is, I don't claim that I love Jesus. That would be a hollow claim. Judge not, lest ye be judged. What a beautiful refrain. What happened was, right, and this is a very, very interesting story. They were in a hotel room watching TV. Mike Stipe was in his hotel room watching TV. And this is from Peter Buck. He said, and I quote, literally, Michael was watching one of those talk shows, and I think the subject was, people judge me by the way I look or something. Whereas when I have the misfortune to look at 2 minutes of one of those Oprah Geraldo things, I just get revolted at everyone concerned, the audience and me. Michael actually looked at this and felt, gosh, what if this person who was in this awful, tacky, degrading situation? So it's written from that perspective. And I think probably having done press conferences in the past and being in those kinds of situations, there might be a little bit of empathy to the experience that we've had. So it's not talking about religion in the sense of, worship and praise. It's talking about treating this person on this TV show like a leper, like they used to do in biblical times. So,
sure.
It's just, it's kind of that thing of, wow, you were picking on this kid or this woman or this adult or whatever on this TV show, and you're throwing her out there like some goddamn freak show.
Yeah.
Like the 1800s Victorian era thing. And
put a scarlet letter on her chest. Yeah, exactly.
And, so, I mean, the right-wing evangelicals in America didn't like this. But at the same time, it was considered a kick in the teeth of these mega churches.
Yeah, I mean, as far as them jumping up to do that, hey, if the shoe fits, wear it, right?
Right.
So,
and I mean, if I say something vague and you think it's about you, then it's probably about you.
Well, I mean, like, if the shoe fits, wear it. For real. I mean, I don't know. If somebody's got that subconsciously going, in some way, obviously.
Peter Buck would say in Q magazine, he said that people are going to think that Michael is talking about himself not liking Jesus. I don't think people will take us that seriously. It's not like we're tearing up a picture of the Pope on TV.
Yeah. I definitely remember that. I think that totally probably ruined
Sinead O'Connor's career.
Yeah, Sinead O'Connor's we were talking about. Was that SNL? She did that?
I think it was. It was a live TV show because they couldn't edit it out.
Yeah, I think, so SNL would have been it then, because that's the demographic too for that time. The 20-somethings would have been watching that. Funny story, I never got around to it, but we were rehearsing a Sinead O'Connor song for something. I can't remember. We couldn't quite get it to work for some reason. I think it was just the energy. But anyways, my plan was when we did learn it, I was going to tear up a picture of Sinead O'Connor at the end. It's nice. Turnaround's fair play. Right?
Nothing compares to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Next song is a song called Undertow. And this is...
I immediately think of Tool, the Tool single.
Yes.
So I see it and I get excited, and then I'm like, oh wait, never mind. This is a REM Undertow. It's not going to be quite as ballsy. But,
No, I mean, this is another one of these what I call bipolar songs, and this is the second song in a row where the subject of faith could be misinterpreted, because a lot of people in the fan base believe this is a song about either finding religion or finding atheism.
Right.
So it's very, very rocky. And it's got some great drums and bass at the beginning, and then the lyrics kick in, then the band kicks in.
Yeah, and they display really good dynamic use throughout the entire album, but especially in this one too. They did do a very, very good job of their. Yeah. Also, the female backing vocals are very, very good. The Patti Smith stuff that she added is just very, very pleasant.
Now, Patti Smith would jump on the next song too, and this is a song called Ebo the Letter.
Yeah,
now,
I like this one.
This was recorded in the studio, so it's going to have a lot more production value to it. But this song right here, I mean, even that's my phone. That's paddling. But even I'm going to keep that in. But even even now I'm talking about it, right? I'm starting to get goosebumps of it. This is a song I've maybe listened to 6 times in my life, and there's a reason I've only listened to it 6 times. And 4 of those times were researching this thing. This song is one of those songs that I can't listen to all the way because it's so haunting. It's so, it's so deep sounding.
Legato. It's very legato.
Yes.
There's a lot of smoothness throughout it, but there's also a vibrato effect, which is kind of choppiness. So there's kind of a dichotomy going there.
Yeah, and I mean it uses an EBow, and for people who are not familiar with an EBow, it's an electronic vibration device that you use on a guitar that kind of gives you the sound of an actual physical bow that you hear on, say, a violin or viola.
It mimics the vibration patterns that a bow would create, because basically all it is, it creates friction, which creates vibration, which creates sound at a particular pitch, depending on how. Yeah, so the EBow is basically just an electronic bow, like you would see on an upright bass or a violin, popularized by Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. Actually, he was the guy that kind of made it a thing that people wanted to get their hands on.
I've used an EBow a couple of times, and I personally think it sounds best coming on an acoustic instrument. Don't ask me why.
That's interesting. I've never touched one. I've never had my hands on one. I've known about them for a long time. I've never even seen one. I've never had the opportunity to play one. Never.
We had one in our old band back in the day, and it was good for the things that we used it for. But it seemed to me, it looked like what's the best way to describe it? It looked like about the size of a webcam, right? Of a modern day webcam. Not very big, not very,
It's like kind of curved.
Yeah. So you can hold it.
Yeah. I mean, it looks kind of like this mouse I have right here almost.
Yes. And
I mean, but a little, not as, but yeah.
Shrink it down about 50% and that's
yeah. I've got a more vertical mouse, Logi vertical mouse, if anyone's, but look up that EBow if anyone's interested. It's a really cool thing. I'd love to play with one. And
this song is written about River Phoenix. And I mean, it's just, this is kind of like the window into Michael Stipe's soul at this point in his life. I mean, he's saying things like, my loss and here we go again. I mean, it's just because of the haunted nature of the song, I can't listen to it, and I choose not to listen to it. Not because of anything in particular, but it's one of those songs that I have to, if I listen to it, I want it to have the same effect on me.
Yeah, you might lose its meaning a little bit. You don't want to wear it out.
Yeah, and I know that sounds silly because it's like, buried in a obscure REM album, but I mean, it's such a good song. I recommend everybody to listen to this song. If you haven't listened to it yet, go to YouTube, find it. Go to Spotify, whatever, find it. It'll be well worth your time. But it's a
headphones.
Yes.
Headphones are some good speakers, good car stereo, good studios. Yeah, something good so you can really listen to it. It's
a sad song, but it's a very, very good sad song.
It has some hopeful notes in it, I'd say. It's like most of it's in a minor key, but in the chorus it resolves up to a major, which is kind of the minor, for those out of the know, is kind of the sad sounding chord. And the major is more like the happy sounding chord in layman's terms. Yeah. So there's some slight subtleties that will show a little bit of hope. But other than that, I mean, it's a very haunting song. It's got a very, it's interesting. The song has like a lumber to it, like a swing in a way. It's weird the way it has a certain energy to it. It's definitely worth a listen.
Now, you mentioned minor and major chords. Quick sidebar for a minute. I was watching a video a couple of days ago, and it was a guy playing metal in a major key. And every single song sounded like an REM song.
Wow. Okay, yeah, because they tend to stay in minor keys and then solo in like pentatonic scales and stuff.
Yeah,
tend to. Obviously.
Yeah. So we leave EBow the Letter, and we almost leave side one, See what I'm doing there?
There you go.
The song is called Leave. This song is very, very weird for this album.
Yeah, this it doesn't the two parts don't, in my opinion, don't really match up very well. They say basically it sounds like two separate songs
being played at the same time.
Well, but with the lead in, the lead in, as far as I'm saying. But then you have this quiet lead in, and then the weird effect siren thing comes in.
Yeah.
And it's kind of annoying, kind of obnoxious at first, but it lends itself well to the track once everything gets up and going and mixed. And I'll give that a lot of that to the mixing engineer and Scott Litt for achieving that balance, if you will.
Now this is a song, like I said, I called it weird, called it an outlier. This is probably my favorite song on the album.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
What Greg was talking about a minute ago, not to put words in his mouth, like at the very beginning, it's like an acoustic introduction playing what will become the riff of the song with like a mellotron playing with it, right? It's very, very soft, very, very mellow, very
slowed down, like probably halftime or more than what
and then all of a sudden at exactly 1 minute the drums kick in with just like a simple snare, and then the siren sound goes off, and like they whip the guitars out, they whip the ebo back out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't want to say noise, but that's probably the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a sample, basically. They use it as a audio texture, if you will. I have a note for this one over here that says tambourines in my eyes. So I guess they went pretty tambourine heavy on this one to kind of drive it a little bit. But you see that throughout the album. There's a lot of alt percussion and funky stuff like that. Yeah, and then and it's it starts off real morose, and then it goes to this like upbeat kind of like driven rock, and the vocals are just Mike Stipe at his best, at his prototypical form. What you expect when you turn on the radio and hear Michael Stipe, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just real good.
I mean, it's a 7-minute song, and
it's very long. Yeah.
And I mentioned at the top of this that, all of the live sound might have kind of, the production value is greater than live sound, but the overall sound, they had to work a little bit harder to get what would be REM standard. This takes full advantage of everything. Michael Stipe's voice is almost perfect in this one, or it's perfect for Michael Stipe, I should say, because he has, like I said, he's got a really, really great voice. The expansive nature of the arrangement, and just that middle bit, right, when they're using the pick scraping up and down the guitars, and he's singing it very, very haunted with the reverb, and just kind of does that, and then you slap on the ebo with it, and Bill Berry's drumming that brings the energy back up.
Yeah, I mean, this is very good at that.
I mean, okay, it's called Leave. It's about leaving town, going to the next town, and the first half of this album did not have that. This is the high side, as they call it, HI, and now we're moving to the fi side, which is more of the downbeat. Hey, we're leaving, we're on the road kind of thing. But I mean, Leave is probably the best way that they could have ended this half of the album.
Yeah. Especially if you're looking at it like side A, side B, it's a good end of side A.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's one of those songs that is either going to start or end an album, but we're still in the vinyl days, so it's kind of ending that vinyl, shall we say?
Yeah, the end of that side. That was something that I think a lot of people took in consideration too. Almost like when you're putting acts to a play together. You think about how the story makes sense as a whole, but sometimes the segments and the parts need to be moved around and tweaked a little bit. So I don't know if they took specific consideration of that, but I think it was a solid choice for their end of side A, if you will.
And at the end of side A comes the beginning of side B, or at least all you vinyl heads know what I'm talking about. I'm not a vinyl guy. I'm not a vinyl guy. To me, music is music. It doesn't matter if a good song's a good song.
Whether it's on a CD, a tape, MP3, whatever.
I don't know who said that. It was a British musician. I can't remember who said it. It said if a song can't be, I think it was Paul Weller. He said if a song can't be played on a piano or an acoustic guitar and it sound good, then it's not a good song.
Yeah, I think there's some merit to that, but
I mean, it's not 100% science, but I think what he was saying is that a lot of things are not as simple, are more complicated than they should be. Yeah,
perhaps, or they rely on like non-musical elements too much,
like the Edge.
Yeah, or like say, what's that newfangled techno thing? It's like it's just like I don't know. I don't get it. I'm getting old, but it's like that. It's you couldn't play that song on a guitar.
No. And so, I think there's videos going around on YouTube. Quickly jump into YouTube real quick. Videos going around on YouTube where the Edge kind of has his whole rig set up and explains that 90% of what he does is the effects box. Like he played the song Elevation, right? So he plays the little riff, and it's like it's going with all the effects, the wow, 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 and it sounds really, really great. And he says, yes, but this is what would happen if I turned the effects off. And he's literally strumming two chords once.
Yeah, it's like like the thing in I think it's where the streets have no name. He's got this like really long delay chain.
Yeah,
at the end. And it's like it's like it sounds all like lots of stuff's happening, but it's really him just playing one chord, like picking each note in a particular order at a particular time. Nothing near that. Yeah,
but the timing has to be right, otherwise it'll all go crazy. Is what he said.
Yeah, there's skill involved. I'm not saying he's he's a hack or anything. I'm just saying it's a little bit of sleight of hands. Yeah, smoke and mirrors, that kind of thing. Just a little bit.
And for the record, I think the Edge is a great guitarist. It's just
absolutely.
When you see behind the curtain, it's like, oh, come on, man. Yeah. So we moved to a song called Departure, and this was again recorded live during a sound check. And this is kind of like, Wake Up Bomb or, something that could have been in Monster. Heavy guitars, Michael Stipe's melody being erratic, which is a hallmark of REM in a good way, I mean.
A little attitude.
Yeah. And again, it's another song about touring, another song about traveling. And it kind of looks at the things you'd see on the road as opposed to anything else. Like, I want to say people watching, but like car watching or, town watching.
Yeah, I mean, I know I have people ask me all the time, like, "Oh man, it must be cool touring. You must see so many cool things." It's like, yep, the bar in a bathroom, and every Walmart from here all the way to Florida. Yeah, it's incredible. No, we see some cool stuff for the most time, but there's mental rigors to the road.
Yeah,
you spend a lot of time sitting in cars, and then when you get to the venue, sometimes you wait for hours before you perform. So I mean, there's a lot of mental rigors from the road, definitely. But the thing about that is, it's a sliding scale. The more popular you get, the more demanding your schedule will get. But also, for the most part, if you're doing it correctly, the accommodations get better.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term. So, but even so, like 200 shows a year, like I said, that's really, really tough. That's like a show every 3 days or something like that.
Yeah, I remember when I was working with you guys, and you had the Florida shows lined up at the Keys.
Yeah,
and like you were telling me about it, about like the drive that you guys would have to take. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, "Thank God they didn't ask me to go with them."
Yeah, they luckily we only needed a driver for that one because they had an in-house engineering to do all that. But that was like a 30-hour drive or something like that with gear. I mean, it was crazy. My
thing was, even if I was in a band that had to do a 30-hour drive, no. I mean, it's it's worth it in the shows, everything like that. But just the the logistics of you're going to be sitting in a truck for 30 hours. You know, it's like the people
because we didn't stop we didn't like get a hotel. Our driver drove until he got tired, and then each person from the band switched out until we got there. Yeah, I mean, you just gotta. Sometimes that's part of the life of a musician, though. I mean, you gotta get out there, and sometimes you gotta drive a little bit further than you want to, but you know, if you're serious about it and you want to do it, that's what you got to do.
I mean, Lewis Black, the comedian Lewis Black, he once said that he didn't know if New Zealand was as beautiful a country as everybody made it out to be, because after 27 hours on a plane, anywhere would be beautiful.
Yeah, on a plane, I could see that, because in a car you can at least like get out and catch get some fresh air and like stretch your legs. But in a plane, I've never had more than like a 6 or 7 hour plane ride. So
yeah, those are hell enough. But I mean, one of the things about this song is, I mentioned plane rides and stuff like that. A lot of these lyrics were written by Michael Stipe as kind of a letter to River Phoenix while he's flying over some like very, very colorful and active cloud coverage.
Yeah.
And this is kind of him writing a letter saying, "Hey, dude, you should have seen this. This was fantastic."
Oh man, okay.
I mean, he said in Mojo, he said that it was orange and lit up the entire sky. Everyone was asleep but me, and presumably the pilots. It was seeing that and wanting to share it with my friend River, realizing that I'll never be able to reach out to him and tell him what it was like. So, it's hey, I'm on the road. Hey, this is a great picturesque scene that I'm doing.
This is something that I would have called you when I landed to talk to you about, or written to you, or etc., or we'd talk about next time we met up at the Viper Room or whatever.
Yeah, and again, it's not pathetic sad, but it's sad.
Yeah, no, it's sad. I mean, he obviously lost somebody important to him.
Yeah, I mean, lost, again, as we mentioned, two people of that most importance to him. Now, this is a weird song that we're going to talk about called Bittersweet Me, and not weird in terms of the song. It was the second song that they used, and it was recorded during a sound check like everything else. The irony and the weird part about this song is it was recorded live. This song technically doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's interesting because they recorded it, but they don't really play it. They don't play it live, and it wasn't recorded in a studio. So
yeah, this recording is the only proof that we have that Bittersweet Me exists.
And that's a shame too, because I think this is one of the best songs on the album.
Oh yeah.
My favorite thing is the pre-chorus modulation they do. I think it's just so brilliantly planned out. It shows to me that you can be a good songwriter without playing a million notes.
Yeah.
I think that's there's a lot of bands that do a great job of that. Chon, Dream Theater, they tons of notes, tons of sweeps, and all this really complicated stuff. But it just goes to show you that just with good chord knowledge and knowing how to move around on the neck and knowing your singer's limitations and stuff like that. And the lyrics too. I love the metaphors that he presents. He's very, very, very powerful, very good at that. Great song. I think this is my pick for this album, even though it's kind of like the single, quote unquote. I just love it. It's a great song.
Well, see, this song's kind of about something that somebody wants, but they don't know what they want. Not in a childish kind of way, but like
you're at a crossroads, kind of like you there's something that you want, you just can't quite figure out what it is.
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. And I mean, he's also irritated by this. I mean, it's about this song. I mean, it sounds like it's about wasting time, and then kind of the guilt and the bitterness that follows that you've wasted the time that you have, and you feel useless, you feel uninspired while you're not doing anything, and it causes a cycle. Again, this is very, very heavy bipolar implications. Again, for the record, I'm not implying that anybody in REM has or does not have bipolar, and if they do, it's their business, not ours. It's just in terms of the song, that's what's screaming out to me.
Sure.
I mean, like, I'd sooner chew my leg off than be trapped in this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a hell of a... That's
desperation right there.
Yeah. And I mean, like... And then the chorus is like, I don't know what I'm hungry for. I don't know what I want anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, he just... It's... I want to do something, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's got to be very defeating. I mean, big time.
We go to the next song, right? Which is a song called Be Mine. and it's very, very. What's the best way to say this? Be Mine is Michael Stipe said this is the creepiest song that he ever wrote. It's a lot of
Oof.
It's a lot of eyes. It's a lot of, I will, I want, I will, I should, just, which is unusual for an REM song.
This reminds me a lot of the Magnetic Fields.
Okay.
They're not very popular, but I guess you could say they're kind of indie like REM, and they've been around just as long as them actually. But they have thematic albums, and they have an album called I, where every song has the word I in it, like I die, I will, like all these different things. So to see I will like that, and to hear him kind of I don't know. It might be a pure coincidence, but I just, as being a big fan of theirs, I got Magnetic Fields vibes all day from this song.
Well, it's also very, very, like I said, it's very, very creepy. It's a love song to somebody. It's almost stalkerish, right? It's a love song to somebody who they don't know that I'm in love with you, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, this started off as a single track, single guitar, and then kind of, expanded upon it as it went out.
Yeah.
Now, there's also one thing about this song that I love. There's a TV show called Frontman, right? There was a TV show called Frontman, and it was kind of like Wife Swap in the sense that a band would swap singers with another band. Not that way. But you never seen Wife Swap?
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with it, but just I don't know. The internet's ruined my brain.
It's not called Stepsister Swap. But Frontman, basically, they'd take a band and they'd switch out the lead singer with another band's lead singer, and then basically they'd switch lead singers. For this episode that I'm referencing, it was REM and Radiohead, of course.
Novel idea.
Yeah, and this is the song that Tom York sang. So this
I think that's perfect though for Tom York.
Yes, I mean this is creepy enough without Tom York singing it.
Right.
Now, for those REM fans interested, Michael Stipe covered "Lucky" by Radiohead, which is an absolutely fantastic song.
Huh.
I mean, if you've never heard it, again, go look for it. Both bands, after listening to the respective versions, said that Lucky would have sounded better as an REM song, although I can't understand why. And but Be Mine would have sounded better as a Radiohead song, and I can see that. You know, it's really, really weird.
It's weird.
But we go from the creepy side to the hush hush side. Okay. Song called Binky the Doormat, and it is a very sleazy, seedy, and filthy song. It is. It's like James. It's like the album Laid by James. Excuse me. That's an absolute filthy album. This would have belonged on it. It's a lot of frustration, a lot of sexual tension.
Yeah, sexual references, straight up like sex. Straight up, subtle and straight up references in that regard. I mean, there's high levels of BDSM. There's a boner joke in there. I'm just a little acorn, while acorns grow into mighty trees. Wink, nudge, nudge. And this was recorded like an hour and a half from where I grew up too, actually. In Phoenix. I grew up in North Tucson.
I mean,
so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. This is just this song creeps me out a little bit. If Ebo the Letter makes me stand my hair stand on end because of how emotional, how deep the song is, this one makes my hair stand on edge. Is in the like I feel like even now talking about it, I feel like I need to go wash my hands. Yeah,
this one's pretty crazy. Yeah, it sounds innocent enough when you start it, but then it gets weird.
Then again, the fans think that it's about a clown on a coke binge.
Okay, well,
I mean,
you don't want to tell anybody that they're wrong, Well, I mean, seriously, like I remember I was reading an article from some musician somebody came up to him and was like, "Hey, is this song about this?" Oh, it was Adam Jones from Tool, the guitar player. So a fan came up to him and said, "Hey, is this song about this particular thing?" And he was like, "Yeah, you figured it out. Good job." And she was like, "Oh, awesome, thanks." And then the guy was like, "Was it about that?" He's like, "No, but she's not wrong.
Yeah.
But she's not wrong. That's her interpretation of it. It's not wrong to her because she's had time to think about it, sort it out. So I'm not going to be the guy to crush somebody's perception of a song that they've ingrained time and experiences into their life to. I'm going to let them have their fun and tell them, yep, you figured it out. I'll tell them that every time."
I mean, that's what I said earlier. It's all, all songs belong to the fans after it's been released if they're not clear about what the intentions are.
They do, but that's kind of the fun about it, is because no one really knows exactly what they meant. And there's guys like Kurt Cobain who vehemently to their last breath literally said that some of the songs were about nothing at all, but some of them had references about his father not being a part of his life. And some stuff that if he did do that way, then he had subconscious help that he didn't even realize he had.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that maybe that's an element too, because obviously this is a man who's experienced some personal trauma, and people all deal with trauma in different ways.
And I mean, that's the thing. That is Michael Stipe.
Yeah, well, I mean he could have done a lot less productive arc if he wanted to, probably. So I mean, I don't know the entire story, but I mean, if a bunch of good art came out of it, then it could have been way worse, right?
And I mean, as you said, we can't tell people what a song is about. This song might be literally Michael Stipe throwing Scrabble tiles up against the wall and writing words that start with the letter of his Scrabble tile that hit the floor or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Family Guy writing staff got involved.
Yes.
The manatees.
Yes. You think that's funny? Remember the time? Yeah.
Oh, that was a really good American accent, man. I like that.
Thank you.
Very, very good.
I've worked on it the last 3 3/4 years. Hopefully I don't have to use it no more.
I know exactly what that's for. It's like, oh, hey, officer, everything's fine here. We're doing dandy. Have a good day.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so we're moving on from clowns on coke-filled binges to a song called Silver.
Isn't that an instrument?
I think it is. I mean,
like the name,
I'm trying to think. Is it that thing that they use at the beginning of Lowrider?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is the instrumental on the album, which I thought was kind of a interesting choice for this album. And I still think that it might have been good to put it earlier in the album.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a good side A end.
With Leave.
Yeah, or Leave and then that one, have that be the end and then shift it down. But it's definitely an interesting one.
Instrumentals, I think, are best either at the starting point, the midway point, or the end point. There's literally, you can't put them anywhere else. I
agree with that. Yeah, because it's kind of like a palate cleanser.
Yes,
in a way. Yeah,
but it also goes with the touring theme, right? Because it does feel like a beach type deal, Yeah,
it's very casual. It's very.
You can picture the little colored drinks with the little umbrellas and the fruit all around it, and the tikis and the complete blue clear water, no wind, not a care in the world. I mean, it is very, very lazy. And the great thing about it is that they kind of played hot potato musically, because this doesn't feature Michael Stipe, because there's no lyrics. It doesn't feature Michael Stipe. So in this one, you've got Bill Berry, the drummer, playing the bass. Mike Mills is playing organs. I mean, there's harps involved. Just, again, that's that kind of all relaxing. But I think they did that because of the next track. So in terms of the track listing, because So Fast, So Numb is, I mean, for me, this is one of R.E.M's most rockiest songs by R.E.M standards. I mean, it's not going to be...
For them, it's pretty rocking.
It's not Megadeth or anything like that. And
no.
it's kind of the narrator in this song seems really, really pissed off, just absolutely angry at the subjects he's talking about. And a lot of fans claim and believe that this is another letter that he wrote to Kurt Cobain and River Phoenix.
Yeah.
And instead of it being, hey lads, I miss you, I love you, this is more along the lines of, how in the hell could you do this to me? How could you do this to us?
Yeah.
You know, you've left me behind. I miss you.
Yeah. Also, in this, I just now noticed this. In this notation you have down here, where it says "so fast, so numb," I believe that he is referencing Kurt's suicide note.
Yeah.
I believe that is an allusion or a note mention of his suicide note, because he says something about being so effing numb. Yeah. In his suicide letter. So I'm wondering if those. It's
just a reference.
It might be, because like he was very affected by him, but so I just now wrapped my head around that. I had his suicide note memorized at one point.
Wow.
I don't know. I was just such a big Cobain fan when I was a kid.
I mean, that's probably why it sounds as angry as it does, or at least again for R.E.M. standards. You know, he loves his friend. He's pissed off that his friend is no longer with us, and he's angry. He's angry about how it happened, how it went down, you know, and more kind of angry at himself too, that like, could I have done something to prevent this?
Sure.
You know? And, you know, he had a very, very close relationship with Kurt Cobain, like a very close relationship. There were rumors going around. They were loving.
Yeah. Yeah. And whether that was true or not, I don't know, but Kurt was always a very open-minded guy when it came to sexuality and stuff like that. Like, he didn't believe that. Yeah, he didn't, and I don't know if he was as open-minded as I hear that Michael Stipe was, but I know as far as like, he was open to different orientations, and he didn't believe in misogyny or discrimination of any type by anyone. So
he's extremely live and let live.
Yeah, very, very much, very, very libertarian of him. But so that wouldn't surprise me. But at the same time, I don't really. I don't think there's enough to substantiate it truly. I mean, it's supposed to be just rumors that were started, you know, to
discredit a lot of Kurt Cobain's friends, like rumors about Dave Grohl, rumors about. I don't believe it's true. I really don't. But I mean, a lot of R.E.M. fans seem to believe that this theory, in the sense of, hey, I'm this angry because, you know, someone I was very close to has gone. But they also believe, well, this could have been made up by people trying to discredit Kurt Cobain. It's very, very, very weird. But I thought it was, you know, there was enough out there to at least mention it. But I personally, I think it's bullshit myself.
It sounds like flimsy at best, but you know.
But I mean, again, it's just the anger and the venom coming out of his voice and the lyrics. You know, it's just. It's like witnessing two old friends who fell out have that one last argument before they become friendly again.
Yeah.
You know.
Totally.
We're going to move on to Happier Climates. This is the road song. This is the not happier country song. You know, it's called Low Desert. It does sound like a 90s country song, which it goes against it for a start.
But it's that indie element again, because now you've got in like stone cold indie bands like the Decemberists and stuff like that. That are putting folk and country elements into alternative slash indie. I mean, I don't even know what does alternative mean anymore? Because when I was a teenager, alternative was like the Pixies and like Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots and Soundgarden, you know what I mean? They were grunge, but like alternative was like its own little orb that encompassed grunge and
everything.
Like a few other sub-series. I guess it was chronological. I don't know anymore.
I mean, it's like I said earlier. It's. I think they call it alternative because nowadays I guess they call it adult contemporary.
Oh God, you know? that just makes,
But I mean, I always took it to it's not pop music.
Yeah.
Music is popular music.
Yeah, sure, but grunge was very popular for a while there. So
True.
but I don't
But it
know.
started as an alternative movement, but
It did. And it started underground, and then it became viable. So it became alternative. It became its own umbrella. So basically, that was anything that wasn't normally mainstream, or because remember in the '90s, at the end of the '90s, we were like still in the tail end of the hair rock and glam rock stadium rock era. So there was all these people trying to differentiate themselves from that era, and that's how we got grunge.
Yeah,
was from people wanted to do something like they were. Kurt Cobain was tired of thinking that he had to play like Yngwie Malmsteen to be in a band.
yeah,
Just going back to the thing before with REM, how on Bittersweet Me, really good chord progressions. The song was well written. You can write a good song without writing a ton of notes.
Yep.
And that's what the grunge era represented. Basically, was you can be angry, have something to say, and get an instrument and go out there and do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they definitely had the beginnings of what we see now as the indie sound.
Yeah.
Which
Definitely.
can encompass this sort of folky kind of country element almost.
Well, see, here's the thing too, because it was written about going from town to town to town, right? And so it's got a lot of imagery of car crashing and driving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because REM have always been a touring band, I mean, they've influenced so many people in so many different parts of the country. So when I say that they're like the godfathers of alternative music, I mean, they were taking, picking sounds and mandolins and, acoustic guitars and stuff to places that were still hearing hair metal, actually stuff before hair metal. I mean, this was still in terms of rock music, this was still the early punk, new wave,
electronic wave.
Yeah.
The British pop explosion kind of. Yeah. So yeah, the guitar rock era hadn't even started yet, and and like I was mentioned before, that band, the Magnetic Fields, they were starting right in the middle of this too, doing their own thing, completely different. So that's kind of cool that they, even back then, they weren't. They stayed true to who they were. They didn't become a hair metal band or something. Imagine that REM like
a hair metal band,
sounding like a Skid Row or something. I'm trying to imagine the vocal style for that, but yeah.
Oh my word! I just can't imagine Peter Buck like with the chick dancing on the hood of the car playing his mandolin.
Yeah. Dude's over there with the guiro, like, with Aquanet, and there's like fire behind him.
All right, we're gonna end this very, very, very weird walk in Michael Stipe's psyche with a song called Electrolyte. This was the final line of the album, the final song of the album. Excuse me. No, guiro is the instrument we were talking about earlier, not a zither.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they did that a lot in this album, like tambourines, and they really went all out with that. Yeah.
I mean, this song is kind of like Night Swimming, which was on Automatic for the People. It's a very, very piano-based song. It's kind of a come down.
Yeah.
And this is basically Michael Stipe people watching.
Huh.
He went to he lived out in LA, and he went to Mulholland Drive, which from my understanding is like the big, the big part of LA where a lot of people go, and it's
a busy like foot traffic area.
Yeah. And so he'd go to people watch. I mean, he wrote the song after a trip to Mulholland Drive after the earthquake in 1994 when his home was damaged.
Yeah.
So he had nothing to do while he was getting his house fixed. He wasn't going in the studio. He wasn't touring, so he'd just go people watch. Michael Stipe said in an essay that Mulholland represents to me the iconic from on high vantage point, looking down at LA and the valley at night when the lights are all sparkling and the city looks like it does from a plane, like a blanket of fine lights, all shimmering and solid. I really wanted to write a farewell song to the 20th century.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it was imminent.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the 90s had a lot of bands who wrote their Millennium song, right? And, it's one of the lyrics, 20th century, go to sleep really deep, we don't blink. I mean,
Anthem for the Year 2000 by Silverchair. Case in point.
Blue,
Written
End of the Century.
97. Yeah, 97, 96, I think.
Yeah, Blue, End of the Century, 1993. I mean, it's just everyone was looking forward to
Gorillaz. They
Yep.
had a song, something
2000.
Yeah.
And I know that came out in like 2003, but Damon Albarn wrote the basis of that song in 1999.
I didn't know it came out that later though. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, it still works though.
Yeah, but I mean, he wrote it before the millennium. That's why it's called 2000 because he didn't have a title for it, and it was written, But I mean, even then, the idea of this big new thing, the 20th century is over. We're going into the new thing. All the years are going to start with 20. Y2K's coming. It's going to be better for everyone.
Yeah.
And in a year and a half, it wasn't.
It's the same. It was nothing. I mean, everybody thought like something big was going to happen. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people thought that something big was going to happen in 2000.
Yeah.
And it was just exactly the same as 1999.
Yeah.
It wasn't really the 2000s until like 2003.
Yeah. And it's usually the same with certain decades too. I mean, it's just, I remember I was 16 when all that happened. And I remember all the nonsense that people thought,
Yeah, I remember that too. I played a prank on my girlfriend at the time's family. Like I had some friends cut the power like right at midnight. Yeah, it almost worked. It was fun.
But I mean, a lot of REM fans think this is about alien abduction. That's tenuous at best. Sorry if you believe that. I mean,
yeah, I think there's a lot of claims of alien sightings out in California.
True.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the pollution in the air.
Yeah.
Like people think they see things that aren't there.
But it's just like, a bird flying through all the smog.
Yeah, or like some light from something hits it, and reflects some swamp gas off of Venus.
And that weak ass story is the worst you can come up with. The last line on this album, I mean, sums it all up. Sums up the whole album. Sums up, it's not defiant. It's not lackluster. It's literally, I'm not scared. I'm out of here.
Mic drop.
Yeah, he's like we're done. We're done here. And for me, this is a 9 out of 10 album. 9 out of 10 all day long.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd give it a 9.5. I enjoyed it very much. I think it says it's deep. It has a lot to say. There's lots of different textures from each musician. I mean, it's just, very, very heartfelt and just very good.
Very diverse. Michael Stipe's lyrical nonsensical is weaved. I mean, it's very vulnerable. There's a lot of, emotion, raw emotion into this, and just it's life on the road. I mean, it's a hard one to explain. It's a hard one to explain. But I think it's a fantastic album. If you've not listened to it, go ahead and do so because you'll see what we're all talking about. Unfortunately, because of licensing issues, we can't play anything from it, so you have to take our word for it. But, it is what it is. Man, it has been completely awesome having you on once again for the second. This is the third attempt that we've tried to record this.
We got it this time, hopefully. So
yeah, we've got it this time. It's going to be fun to edit. All right, so we're going to be back here in a few minutes where we talk about some of the stuff that we've got coming up, which is including me growing the mustaches and the mullets and update on live streams and everything else that we've got going involved. And Greg, it's been awesome, man. And we'll be back here in about 5 minutes or so.
Peace.
All right, we've got a few more minutes before we get out of here. Thanks again for taking the time to spend your day with us. It's been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful show. I enjoyed it. Special thanks to Greg for coming on once again. This is, as I mentioned, this was the third time that we actually got stuff recorded because of corruption issues and then crunch issues, then corruption and crunch issues. So it was a heck of a time getting this done. But man, I think we got it through. If you want to follow Greg, go ahead, check out theholodex.com. They're currently dormant right now because of the coronavirus and everything like that. But keep up to date with, what they got going on. They've got clips and stuff all around. And of course, if you want to see Greg play some old video games, go to twitch.tv/vintage_eyes. That way you'll see him, doing the dad game and stuff as well. This week, on our YouTube channel, you can find our final 3 episodes of our Oddworld walkthrough. Man, it's been quite a time, hasn't it? Yeah. But we've got episodes 11 and 12 this coming Tuesday and Thursday. And of course, our special season finale live stream on Saturday, November 21st at 2 p.m. That's where we finish Oddworld Abe's Odyssey before moving on to bigger and better things. And because that means we're a week away from this, we are 2 weeks away from our charity live stream of FIFA The Road to World Cup 98, where we are doing a charity stream trying to raise money for the Movember Foundation. I am growing a glorious mustache. And of course, we are going to take it one step further. In the month of December, I'm going to shave my head into a form of a mullet, and we're going to keep trying to get donations as much as we can because the Movember Foundation is a fantastic charity. I recommend, if you haven't donated to them, to donate to them. Guys, if you were listening, check out the boys. And if you were feeling sad and want to talk to somebody, for the love of God, talk to somebody. It's not less manly to do that, okay? And of course, ladies, if there's a man in your life, husband, brother, boyfriend, father, etc., friend, get them to check themselves out as well. Get them to make sure that they're doing okay, because it's okay not to be okay. And, we need to remove the stigma around men's mental health, and of course, try and make sure that bollock cancer does not take men younger than they need to be, okay? And that's what we're going to be doing next week. We're going to be playing, in 2 weeks' time, we're just going to have a little bit of fun, play FIFA 98, try and raise some donations, and do whatever we can. That's going to become a yearly tradition here on the Because Maybe Network. Last year we did New and Tasty, which didn't go all too well. As I mentioned before, it was not long after I'd left the hospital, and I was still very, very emotionally shook up after my hospital visit last year. But I'm doing a lot better this year. I've done a lot of streams this year. I've ironed out the kinks of my software. I'm going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun. And I'm going to take Wales to the World Cup final. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I hope so. But, that's what it is. Next week, I'm going to be doing a half solo show. I'm going to be doing Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. I'm going to be going over all the details and all the information of that wonderful, wonderful game. Then I'm going to be joined by a very, very small special guest to go through some of the things that they found quirky and exciting about it and answer some questions and so on and so forth. If you want a taste of what that's going to be like, check out our YouTube channel and check out our archives. Look for Extra Episode 1. That's where I had my kid on here and we talked about Mario and Luigi. That was 3 years ago. He's grown since then. I mean, he's bigger than I am right now, and I'm yeah. So that's what we're gonna have here next week, and of course, in the weeks up ahead, we've got after that we've only got 2 more episodes after that. So we're closing in on the end of the season, and then of course we've got our Christmas specials and New Year special coming up at the end of December. But I'll more information on those as they come about. But in the meantime, thank you very, very much for taking your time out today to listen to us. And don't forget to check out Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. Look up Because Maybe Network. Check out our website at becausemaybepodcast.com. And, of course, check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, and Podchaser if if this is not where you usually listen to podcasts. We'll be back here next week. And I hope you have a good week. See you guys. Shut up! Thank you.